Saturn turns retrograde on June 29th, and it'll stay retrograde until around November 15th of 2024. Now, this happens every year. Every year we get a Saturn retrograde, and it happens for approximately around 140 days. So it's a pretty significant chunk of the year that Saturn is turning retrograde. Appears to be going backwards in the sky from our perspective. It's not really going backwards, you know that. When any planet goes retrograde, it's a time for reassessment, reflection, redoing, realization, reflection. Pretty much any word that you can think of with RE, remembering, redoing stuff. Retrograde is the do again kind of thing. So it's retracing its steps. So Saturn has reached its farthest point in Pisces so far, around 19 degrees. And it's going to be retracing through the degrees it's already been, and then it's going to stop at 12 degrees and change in Pisces. So that's a critical degree marker. And we're going to use that to help us get a general theme, like an overarching theme of maybe what to look for in this retrograde period, maybe what to be working for. Saturn is the planet of work and discipline. And when it's returning to where it's been before, it's pinpointing a thematic journey. That's helpful. Why? Because it gives us a structure. Another Saturn word, structuring this period of time so it's not something to be fearful about, but to be focused in on a direction, a laser beam. Saturn has already been at 12 degrees Pisces. It was March 2024. Then it's going to be again in November of 2024. It's going to station and then move forward from there and then trace itself back up to 19 and beyond. The urge for Saturn is to create some sort of structure and integrity. That's what its point is. Safety, security, and all that through tangible achievement. The planet of duty and responsibility and rigidity and sometimes fear, in a place that's about subtlety and sensitivity and caring and humility, deep humility, universal empathy, sacrificial faith. Saturn is the planet with all the rings around it. That gives you an idea of the archetype. It's contained. One of the elements of Pisces is to completely dissolve the material hold on the world. It's to let it all go, to reach for a spiritual harvest instead of a material harvest. But without boundaries, Pisces can oftentimes be taken advantage of. Get off track, be too idealistic in the fantasy realm, just not in reality, because the material world is still happening. So an imbalance there can lead to that kind of experience. So I think Saturn traveling through Pisces, it softens Saturn, but it also strengthens Pisces. And it's like Saturn comes to the party with a bunch of really good Tupperware or something and containers that like gem boxes that can stick all that beautiful stuff from Pisces in and bring it back out. Saturn also represents our personal limitations, what we feel are limitations on ourselves. And Pisces can come in and loosen those up a little bit and say, actually, you can transcend those personal limitations when you're here. You can be more creative, you can be more loving, you can be more empathetic. And we can put some boundaries on it too, so we're not being taken advantage of. And we can create something that actually has a packaging, that it's creative and can come into the world. This is the healing compassion of Pisces, but putting in the work of Saturn, setting aside the time that you need to do for your spiritual practice, and maybe getting the tools you need, buying the book that you need, getting the cushion you want to sit on, or the candle, or whatever it is, or finding the group that's going to help you move forward in your personal evolution. Saturn in Pisces, we're about halfway through it, and this is the chance that we have to rethink those things while it's in its retrograde. The emotions and the sensitivities that we have that may be super Piscean, and learning how to detach from them. Saturn releases as well. Ultimately, this is really good energy to compartmentalize really deep feelings and accept them with more responsibility, with more perspective. And that's very helpful for both things, Saturn and Pisces. That brings us to our Sabian symbol. The Sabian symbol where Saturn is going to station before it goes forward again is Pisces 13, an ancient sword used in many battles, is displayed in a museum. It's the whole overarching theme of this retrograde is encapsulated here. An ancient sword. We've been fighting something. We've been fighting many, many battles throughout our lives. And this is telling us, where do we need to just put down the sword? Where do we need to just send it off to the museum, let other people see it, maybe learn from our experiences, our battles, but to release ourselves from the need to keep fighting in certain ways and certain things. James Burgess from Sabian Mysteries says it's about developing sharpness of intent. That's Saturnian, right? The intent is very direct. There's no greater tool or weapon for the spiritual aspirant than the power of will. It sharpens the mind and impassions the thrust of projection forward. So it's often symbolized by a sword. Those whose path has shown remarkable determination to overcome obstacles develop appropriate reputation and stand as an example of courage for others to emulate. This is filled with malefic talk. Like, I hear Mars and I hear Saturn here. Saturn and Mars get such bad rap for being, malefic bad planets, but it really means that they're just requiring work. We have to put in effort in order to do that, to have the courage to put aside the sword, to stop fighting certain battles that are not necessary anymore. Think about where you need to possibly put down a sword, or realize that some battles are just ancient history, and time to put it in a museum, time to go on in peace. The reality we create is here, and it reflects out into the world. And Saturn is the king of DIY, do it yourself. If there ever was one, he's the hermit extraordinaire, on the edge of space, taking care of business on its own. So regardless of what anyone else in your life says or does, Saturn's going to help you compartmentalize and possibly forgive, put down the sword, not battle anymore, be okay. Take it up to that Zen mountain between you and yourself and release it. Let it go. Let it go. Let yourself be free. Ultimately, Saturn is full of gifts. It's not just bad stuff. It has requirements for the gifts, though. And the gifts need effort to be deserved. You need to put in the work. And during the Saturn retrograde, we can come into some deep Piscean waters and figure out where we need to take some responsibility for that in our lives and possibly make some boundaries for ourselves, put in the effort for spiritual exploration. If you want to know more personally how this is going to affect you, you can look to your whole sign house where Pisces is ruling to understand the general topics of what you could be dealing with during this retrograde period. I have a free PDF on my website, elnatalia.com. I'll link it in the description below. It's by Dimitri George. So you can get it there for free, download it just to get an idea of potentially what kind of topics you're going to be dealing with during this period, generally with Saturn and Pisces, but with the retrograde specifically, where it's going to hit. My favorite keyword for Saturn is mastery. If you think about what it takes to become a master, you pretty much know everything about Saturn. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes work, it takes diligence, it takes responsibility. In order to get to the mastery point, you sometimes have to have limitations and boundaries. You have to say no. Sometimes life says no. That's Saturn. But in the end, you have some beautiful gift of mastery. We get a softer side of Saturn and Pisces, and we get a more contained, determined, and meaningful, purposeful, fantastical creativity from Pisces, which in the end is a pretty lovely pairing. One example I can point to personally is the book that I just finished and published. It's a creative experience. It's a creative journey into a place that's very Piscean, which is the realm of love, and coming back with some containers for it, some little packaging of words to help experience it, to help reach into a deeper understanding of it and hold on to it. Saturn gives us the solid ground to hold on to something. I like you just the way you are, and I will talk to you next time.